Live and on demand, this is WNY News Now.
Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us on Western New York News Now. I'm Lee Kane Jr. and we have a special broadcast for you today. I conducted a long-form one-on-one interview with Chautauqua County Executive P.J. Wendel discussing the current state of emergency in regard to the migrant presence in the county, as well as the state's withholding of FMAP funding and how that will affect the county. We will be broadcasting that interview unedited and in its entirety for you. But first, we'll have our first events forecast with Chief Forecaster Andrew Stevenson. How's the weather looking, Andrew?
Well, LJ, the past few nights have been quite chilly and are going to continue to be chilly. Let's take a look at those overnight low temperatures from last night. The lowest temperature I saw last night was in Angelica and Allegheny County, where they dropped to 36 degrees for an overnight low. Olean was at 39, and then the rest of the area seemed to have lows in the lower 40s. Here in Jamestown, we dropped to a low of 43 degrees last night. So we're at that time of year where the daily highs are still going to be relatively warm, but those overnight lows get quite chilly, especially under clear skies and light winds. Almanac for yesterday, we made it to a high of 67 degrees in the city of Jamestown. Our low was 44, and the records for today, 91, set back in 1931. The record low of 32, only set back a couple years ago in the year 2020. Well, we've been dry recently, and it looks like we're going to continue to be dry through the end of September and in the beginning of October, as the NOAA 8 to 14 day temperature out 8 to 14 day precipitation outlook favors below average in terms of precipitation across the Great Lakes and the Northeast region. So we need some rain, and doesn't look like we're going to get much rain, at least through the beginning of October. Let's time out future scan through the overnight hours and into tomorrow. Tonight, partly cloudy to mainly clear skies. Again, some valley fog will set up across inland locations. Tomorrow, after some early morning clouds, maybe some early morning fog, we should go partly to mostly sunny skies through the rest of the afternoon, and then partly cloudy skies overnight Friday into Saturday as high pressure continues to maintain control of our weather. So here's again your forecast for tonight. Partly to mainly clear skies. Temperatures tonight, low temperatures once again chilly across inland locations with lows in the lower 40s. Could get a little lower than that in the valleys in the upper 30s, and then the warmest spots will be near the immediate Lake Erie shoreline with lows in the mid to upper 50s. Forecast for tomorrow, after some early morning clouds, some fog, we should go mostly sunny skies for the rest of the afternoon. Highs tomorrow generally in the low to mid 70s, and now that 7-day outlook powered by Ultimate Solutions. So I took the rain out of the forecast for Sunday and Monday. That East Coast system that we were looking at the past few days, that's going to move up the northeast Sunday night to Monday, looks like it will stay far enough out of our region that we won't get much rain, maybe a couple isolated showers across the southern tier. Just the only thing we'll be doing with it is an increase in cloud cover, but we're going to continue to look at these model runs and see where they take us over the next few days, as any update in the model runs could bring those showers closer to our region, but we'll see what happens. And then other than that, looks like the rest of the period will be mainly dry through next week, with temperatures generally in the upper 60s to lower 70s.
Andrew, thank you. Before we air the interview, I'd like to clarify what FMAP funding is for those who might not be familiar with the term. FMAP funding stands for Enhanced Federal Medical Assistance Percentage, which determines what percent of a state's expenditure for medical programs like Medicaid and Children's Health Insurance Program, also known as CHIP, which will be funded by the federal government. One other thing that I would like to clarify is a statement that you'll see in the interview where Mr. Wendel says that New York pays more for Medicaid than California and Texas combined. To be clear, on a state level, New York ranks second in raw expenditures behind California and ranks 14th in per capita expenditures on a statewide level. However, New York is one of 18 states that mandate county-level contributions to the state Medicaid program, and of these states, New York has the largest county burden at approximately $7.6 billion. And that is the statistic Mr. Wendel was referring to that you'll see in the interview. Though it should be noted that while Texas does receive county-level Medicaid contributions, it is not a state that mandates them, so the comparison with New York versus California and Texas isn't the best example to use to articulate that point. But with all of that being said, here's the interview. So, are you ready to begin, Mr. Wendel?
Certainly.
Okay. So yeah, my first question would just be, you obviously went to the New York Association of Counties Fall Seminar. I was just wondering how the discussions went with that, the outcomes, and how that's going to help Chautauqua County specifically with addressing the migrant crisis and maintaining the emergency orders on sustainable migration.
Well, Personally, I was elected to the board of NYSAC for a 6-year term, so that alone gives me, the opportunity to represent NYSAC, but also have Chautauqua County's voice a little bit closer to the ear of NYSAC and what we're trying to promote as an organization statewide. The particular statements about the migration, or actually the asylum seekers, as we've spoken, is really critical to where we go, not only in Chautauqua County, but in New York State. The problem has gotten worse. New York City, we've had direct discussions with Mayor Adams' office. I was out at Gracie Mansion in the middle of July and spoke with the mayor directly, along with other county executives. We requested that they no longer send people to counties, especially without notice. But unfortunately, after that meeting, there was individuals sent to Albany County, where County Executive McCoy requested, ceasing sending people. And a little while later, about a month later, Adam Bello from Monroe County received about 600 individuals with about a half an hour's notice. Now, what has this done for Chautauqua County? We did, in a relationship with the mayor's liaison of governmental affairs, last time that there was a request made by a local entity to request, a busload be sent to Chautauqua County. That individual reached out to me from the mayor's office. And again, I restated my position that at this time we cannot accept anymore. And that's after direct contact with those in the faith-based community and our community supporters that are helping the current asylum seekers we have in Chautauqua County, which number somewhere about 80 to 100.
Okay, yeah, and that was one question I was going to ask, if you had an estimation on how many migrants are currently in the county.
About, somewhere between 80 and 100 that we know of. And the reason we say that is, according to what I call boots on the ground, there have been people that have left Chautauqua County and more people have come in. Again, asylum seekers. We do have a group of families that are refugees. Congolese have migrated down from Erie County. They did, originally go to Erie County and have now settled in Chautauqua County. So there are about 10 families, I'm told. But again, that's a refugee status, so it's completely different than the asylum seeking status, as many of our current residents from Columbia have been.
And can you just state the difference between asylum seekers and refugees?
Best to my knowledge, refugees have an ability to work, but don't quote me on that. I'm not exactly 100% sure on the difference. All we know is the asylum seekers, they were detained at the border. They're seeking and starting the asylum process, which takes roughly 7 to 10 years. In fact, Albany County Executive Dan McCoy speaks of a case that has been going on for 12 years now, someone trying to seek asylum. His family is already here and is well along the process of being granted asylum. But he is still in a Middle Eastern country and unable to get to Albany County to unite with his family. So this asylum seeking process is not easy, and it is not short. But the refugee status is completely different, and it has a different abilities, as I'm understanding it, to work as compared to people seeking asylum.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification, to the best of your ability, of course.
Yep.
So then another question would be, what are the implications of New York State withholding the enhanced federal medical assistance percentage, the FMAP funding?
Right now, that's a $3 million hit to our budget this year. But I think what's important to realize too is that we're looking between $7 and $8 million in reconciliation payments that we are told will not happen. So if you look at what's owed to us from previous years and what currently the governor is taking from counties, that's going to hit the county of Chautauqua between $11 and $12 million. My budget presentation will take place next Wednesday night, and we'll highlight where would we be if we had that money in our coffers. Right now, it's years back. So that reconciliation, that would be $7 to $8 million going to the general fund balance. But it's money that was owed. I think the important thing with this It's money that was designated by the federal government to go to counties. You know, we are the only state in the union that pays as much as we do into Medicaid. Texas and California combined do not pay as much as New Yorkers for Medicaid in their state. That's critical. And now the governor taking more money from us, and that money isn't going for new programs. It's not going to new ventures. It's going into the fund balance. So because of our fiscal conservative position, because of strong financial decision-making and planning in my past budgets, the governor now feels that whatever we have saved, she has some entitlement to. And county executives feel that across New York State. We are being punished for being fiscally conservative and fiscally responsible while the governor's spending and state spending increases with no control in sight until they take money from the counties.
Wow. And with you saying New York is #1 for Medicaid payments, is that on a per capita basis or just raw numbers?
I believe just raw numbers.
Wow, that is quite something.
Yeah, I mean, we have the Cadillac of public assistance in the United States. You know, if there's, I want to believe at one time there are 32 different programs offered by Medicaid. New York State offers somewhere between 27 or 28 of those programs. I mean, we are the Cadillac of public assistance. I was just told last night by another county official that there was a family that was traveling across to Indiana and stopped in New York and realized and got wind of how lucrative public assistance is here in New York State. So they stopped. They stopped in Dunkirk and are making a residence there. That's a challenge. You know, that is a grave challenge. And, you know, in regards to the migrant status, you know, what we've asked of the governor is to tell them, suspend our sanctuary state status, if anything, temporarily. Suspend it for a period of time, a year, 2 years. Let us take a breath. But because of the sanctuary status, everyone is sending buses to New York, be it from red states, blue states, purple states, anywhere. Buses are coming here from all over the country into New York because we have such a robust public assistance program.
Okay, yes, and then you obviously had said, I mean, due to the fiscally conservative policies in place with Chautauqua County, you said at NYSAC, I believe, that we're prepared to take the hit with the withholding of the FMAP funding. What steps are going to be in place to do that? If what further fiscally conservative policies will be enacted to compensate for that loss?
Well, I mean, the worst thing would be having to cut programs. I mean, right now we're maintaining our program at the highest levels. We're maintaining, you know, what our residents need. At this time, we're able to bear the brunt. Now, that isn't the case in every county. You know, there'll be some indication as to our financial strength in my budget presentation next week. You know, when I spoke to NYSAC's financial director, they're amazed at what we're able to do here in Chautauqua County. We have had some very successful things that have happened, and we're going to capitalize on that. But nonetheless, you know, it's a challenge. We're being hit with this like everybody else, and the question we all have is, when is the bottom going to drop out? And if that's the case, we're willing to make those, you know, deep cuts and those sacrifices. I'll commend on Wednesday night our department heads for doing an excellent job of their budget. You'll see nothing is overly inflated. We don't have, you know, a lot of pie in the sky programming. We have essential programming, and what I'm going to demonstrate in the budget is just how many state mandates and uncontrollable costs we have to bear. I spoke with one county representative in Tioga County, Marty Sowerby. 97% of her budget goes to state mandated programs. 97. Wow. That's insane. You know, and we all said, you know, what would happen if we didn't have these state mandated programs? If you look at Medicaid, for example, New York State decides the threshold. New York State decides the limits, and then we have to implement that with county funding while they take money.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how that works, right?
Mm-hmm. And another question I was wondering, is New York City still suing the county, among others, for the state of emergency declaration that they claim is discriminatory?
They are not. The case against Chautauqua County has been dropped, and day by day, more and more counties, their cases are being dropped as well. You know, we did go to the mayor's house, the Gracie Mansion in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
4 of us, 2 from each side, along with the executive director of NYSAC, and we put a request, please stop the lawsuit. What people don't realize is this most recent lawsuit was nothing monetary. All it was, it would strap the counties and involving themselves in a financial hardship, if you will, of paying for legal fees to defend the right for us to keep our citizens safe. You know, New York City has not completely vetted every individual that's come in, and it was evident in the cases in not Erie County. You know, Erie County executive had a different position than I did, you know, called us repugnant, unconstitutional. How dare we do that? Personally, I felt that I did not want to risk the safety of our residents because we don't know exactly who these people are. Different cultures, different backgrounds, and we don't know how many are criminals, not criminals. There was a lot of uncertainty. But those individuals went to Erie County and we saw what happened. But it was ironic that all of a sudden, you know, us morally repugnant individuals who were unconstitutional, all of a sudden when there were crimes against citizens in Erie County, that all changed and nothing was said.
Mm-hmm.
I could send them back, but what you did was wrong. I mean, it's unfortunately this has been politicized. But I think what's important to realize, these are still human beings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's the difference if they're being paid to come to New York or being paid to come to the U.S. or trafficked in the U.S. or New York City is paying for them to go anywhere else? Are we still not trafficking human beings, sending them other places? I mean, these are lives that are trying to come here for a better start. You know, my grandfather came here from the Ukraine. You know, my great-grandfather on my dad's mother's side came here from Croatia. They were sponsored. They had the right process. They followed the rules and got their American citizenship. This group, if that's their goal, so be it, but follow the plan. Come about it legally. You know, they came across illegally, and we gave them this title, if you will, of asylum seeker. So we can't deport them, but yet they're still not able to work. And that's very discouraging. These people are languishing in communities without the ability. And if they find work, and out of the goodness of the hearts of many people in this area in particular, but also across the state, you're forcing those individuals to violate state and federal labor laws. That's critical. Where else in history has the state and federal government knowingly allowed people to break the laws that they have established to take care of a problem that they refuse to step up and deal with?
Mm-hmm. And with that, do you have any thoughts on Governor Hochul attempting to amend the situation so that asylum seekers can find gainful employment during their stay here?
Well, you know, that's a unique situation. Is that something we would like? Yeah. But what is that going to do? Is that going to open the floodgates for everyone coming into New York State? Well, whether you're here legally or illegally, you're asylum seeker or not, come to New York State will allow you to work. You know, is that what we're looking for right now? And people are using this I don't know, this catchphrase, if you will. We're trying to increase our communities. Well, are you forgetting that we're pushing people out for reasons? And now you're going to take anybody who wants a fresh start and come in here to New York State? I mean, it's obvious. We have a very robust and very lucrative public assistance program. So if they come in, I want to work. Yes, I'll stay here. Oh, I qualify for public assistance. Why work? Why bother? We have people that are doing that now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some people are able-bodied and aren't working. Others have issues. I understand they've got medical reasons, mental health reasons they cannot sustain employment. But there are many people that can. And because of New York State public assistance, they aren't required to. So now you open the doors, allow these people to come into work. And if they don't work, okay. Do I qualify for public assistance? Yes, you do. Well, then why work? And where does that go? That gets burdened by the rest of the taxpayers in New York State.
And if I can just circle back, you had said that the catalyst for the state of emergency order wasn't necessarily financial in nature. It was more so just concerns with public safety. I am just a little like I'm not confused, but I do want just some clarification, because in the initial declaration, the primary reason, as far as I can tell, was due to increasing the migration levels to unsustainable levels, which sounds financial or resource based.
Well, it's a variety of things, right? We don't have the financial resources. We are seeing that. But the other key is we don't know who these people are. You know, we are considered a high intensity drug traffic area. We have that designation by Senator Schumer. You're also bringing in people that have, unfortunately, are escaping the cartels. And that's a grave danger. And I feel immensely for every one of these individuals that have escaped the cartels. But we've had cartel involvement in Chautauqua County. So now you're bringing people that are being threatened by the cartels into our community. And to this point, we have had no problems. But I do feel for these people. Now you start to see, I think yesterday there was a police officer injured in a protest where individuals downstate were protesting migrants or asylum seekers coming into a shelter. It's getting out of control. So sustainability is not only the protection of those individuals coming here, but the individuals who are here now, our law enforcement, and the financial stability of those who are assisting. I mean, right now, the other piece we've been told is they can't sustain it financially. You know, we did receive $100,000 came from the Department of State. It went to Chautauqua Opportunities Incorporated. They are our migrant liaison when it comes to state funding. If people have issues with migrant concerns, those individuals, migrants, et cetera, can go to Chautauqua Opportunities and they'll assist you. So that's where money's gone, but that money is not sustainable. So it's a variety of things. Not only is it sustainable financially, sustainable for public safety, and you see the demonstrations that are going on across the state. We have people that are outspoken now about, you know, a homeless crisis or individuals with certain, you know, financial and health reasons, you know, mental health issues or drug addiction being resettled in Falconer. You know, those are people that, you know, are American citizens. You know, what are we going to do if that switches to, you know, 60 or 80 migrant families? You know, what's the sentiment going to be there? It's concerning. You know, and again, I look out for the safety of everybody. I do not want people to come here, you know, 40 more on a bus load to be brought to Chautauqua County, you know, and have, you know, residents, you know, outspoken about it and you know, risk the safety. Why create a problem if it's not necessary? And that's my position. You know, we have individuals who are here right now. Let us try to take care of this problem. Please don't send us any more. You know, I spoke to one county executive who has about 100, maybe to 120 people in a population of over 1 million in their county. And they're going crazy. He said, I have nearly as many with 100,000. So, you know, we're all feeling a little bit of this, but uniquely enough, Chautauqua County was one of the first in dealing with this migrant situation of asylum seekers. Now, I think it's important to note that Onondaga County, Ryan McMahon, their executive, and Oneida County, Tony Pacenti, they have refugee resettlement areas. So they have been working with refugees from, you know, multiple countries for over 30 years. In the case of Oneida County, 46 different languages are spoken in the Oneida County. You know, they have a great deal of refugee, and they know how to get the process, and they know how to do it right. But even now, that's stressing out their system, and that's a well-oiled machine that really a public-private partnership that knows how to get the job done. So this is more than just, you know, a small rural county in Western New York saying we can't handle it. This is, you know, counties across New York State with significant infrastructure to assist these individuals that are saying we can't do it anymore.
And can you provide a cost breakdown analysis of what the costs are to shelter these migrants, because with the one county of 1 million people with 100 migrants, that's a 1/100%. The question that I imagine a lot of people are having is, how much does it cost them if such a small relative increase is so taxing?
Well, I think you have to look. Some of the numbers I think you found in an article that came to the Post Journal last week was they're paying $120 per day for two individuals to stay in an apartment. Well, that's $3,300 and some odd, a little over $3,300 a month, and in a year that's over $40,000. So imagine you have an apartment that you're getting $500 to $600 a month. Let's say $1,000 a month is a very, as a nice apartment in Chautauqua County. $1,000 a month is $12,000. Now you're going to triple that, and that's just rent alone. What about the utilities? What about the food? I mean, look at the food costs. I know for a family of three in our house, my grocery bills, anywhere between $100 and $200. You get a family of 4 or 5 or more, you're looking at $200 to $300 a week. Now, if they're very frugal and thrifty, we could probably keep that at $100 to $200. Yes, there has been a lot of assistance with food pantries and the like, but your heating bills. I mean, we're going to have winter coming up. We do rely on snow for a vibrant tourism, with snowmobiling and skiing in the community. So we need cold weather, and what are we going to do for heat? What are you going to do for electricity? There's just a myriad of services that, I don't have that number, but I can tell you from my own, personal budgeting, it's not cheap. If you're looking at just rent alone at $3,300 a month, going to a landlord, you've got to figure in your electric, your water, other utilities, your phone service, your internet. It's costly. It's costly. And right now, the housing that they have is being provided free of charge by individuals out of the kindness of their heart. That's huge. I mean, that's a huge gift to those asylum seekers. Many are taken care. And as I said, I've been aware that many of them are working, which is great. In the part that they are able to provide for their families, but the side is that they're not eligible to work. So therein lies the problem, right? We just turn a blind eye and say, that's okay, let them work. And again, this is all a problem that's been brought on by the federal government, and it hasn't been, blocked by the state government. It's very simple. There's nothing that blocks the governor from temporary banning the sanctuary status that we have in New York State. Declare, okay, New York City can be a sanctuary city, but at this time we're going to suspend that status because we are at capacity. We're suspending our sanctuary state and suspending the sanctuary city status. Let us take our breath. Let us come up for air and get this figured out. But until somebody does that, they're just going to keep coming. We made the reference as county executives. You've got to turn off the spigot. If you're not turning that spigot off, water's going to keep coming out. People are going to keep coming in. And as much as they like to say, and I know, the president and vice president said, we have a secure border, I beg to differ. Now, they are still seeing an increased number, it's kind of plateaued as far as the number of people coming to the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City, which is, the modern day Ellis Island, but it's still not stopping. They want to say we've slowed it down at the border. You have, because we're not seeing a slowdown in New York. And I can tell you the mayor's team has not seen a slowdown in New York City by any stretch. Because what's happening is these other cities, and I was informed that the mayor talks to, mayors from Chicago and LA and Detroit and other big cities. And somehow they're all coming to New York City, the sanctuary city, the city of New Hope. Well, that New Hope is diminishing right now because there's less and less ability for them to support. $12 billion this is going to cost the city of New York over 4 years. So what are they talking now? Suspending services. What can you suspend? Law enforcement? Look at the crime rates in New York City. Your police, your public safety, your fire and EMS, those are going through the roof. I mean, it's not sustainable. But until the president and vice president put their foot down, until the governor stands up and suspends the sanctuary status of New York State, this problem is going to keep going on, and no one is willing to take a stand. But as county executives, we have drawn a line in the sand, and we're going to push back. But the other piece about this, the governor has not sat down and said, let's have a meeting. I will tell you that there is not one of us that at a drop of a hat would not make the trip to Albany to have an audience with the governor and try to come up with solutions. But you have to be willing to listen. You can't stand on a political ideology and say, we're going to go from here and go forward. There has to be a give and take. And unfortunately, we're not seeing that. It's quick to point the finger and blame the other side.
So you're saying that one of the problems with the situation is not just simply monetary safety, all of that, but it's also a matter of a lack of communication and collaboration?
Certainly. We've said that from the very beginning. Many of these groups, in fact, after going to, now it has not been the case of Chautauqua County, and you asked the question earlier, which is really unique. Chautauqua County has been privy to a direct contact from the mayor's office. I pick up the phone, I have my contact that I can reach out and say, this is what I need. Can you tell me if it's factual or not factual? Is this happening or not happening? He reached out to me and said, county executive, I had one of your local municipalities reach out, so they wanted a busload of people. Thank you. And he said, I had to look at my staff because unfortunately he didn't even know where the city was. He said, I have to find out. And he found out it was in Chautauqua County. He's like, he went back to the staff. He goes, you can't send him. The county executive was just here with us last week and said, we cannot take anymore. So the connection I've had is, and that communication has been there for Chautauqua County, unfortunately not for others. Monroe County got wind of people coming to there with a half an hour notice. So now you have to have a process of intaking these people. Where are you going to put them? How are you going to screen them medically? How are you going to screen them for backgrounds? There's so many things that, again, not communicated. And that's one of the big pieces. Even in several different states of emergency, we're not opposing them coming, but you got to tell us. And that still isn't happening. And we've seen last week, an article in the paper. None of that was brought up to me. There was no communication to the county executives. I would say, hey, county exec, I know you said you don't want these people because you can't take care of them monetarily and others, but we're sending them anyway. That was never conveyed to my office. So again, communication and collaboration is huge. And this goes back, to be quite honest with you, I was at a conference in June, and I reached out to the executive director in ISAC. I said, why don't we have a sit down with the governor? We did this before during COVID. She sat down with county executives and listened to our concerns. Why can't she do that now? We've heard crickets, and then we've heard a flat no. We will not sit down and meet. So it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. The problem is here, and people start to need to take responsibility for their actions.
And then one thing with the declaration of the state of emergency, how are you utilizing the powers that it grants to address the situation?
Well, right now, what we're doing is we just created a prohibition for any town, village, or city to enter an agreement with New York City to house individuals. Also, we have a prohibition for any hotels, motels, and lodging or businesses that lodge people from entering into those direct contracts. Again, we're doing that basically to make sure that those people, for example, let's say they come here, and what people don't realize too is the city of New York has a lawsuit that will stop the requirement to pay as a sanctuary city. It's a law that I think was enacted in somewhere in the 1970s, maybe the 1980s, but requires to pay in perpetuity individuals who are seeking shelter in New York City. So it just becomes a more and more convoluted process. But again, getting back to, let's say you're here for 4 months and all of a sudden this injunction is upheld and the city of New York doesn't have to pay anymore. What are you going to do with people that are in your apartments or in your housing complexes? You're going to evict them? Where are they going to go? Now you've just exacerbated a homeless situation that none of us can deny is happening. Chautauqua County and across the state alike, and even the governor's own senior aide said we do have a rising homeless problem. Yes, Well, why aren't we taking the money that you're putting towards our asylum seekers and addressing our homeless, veterans, former employees, moms, dads, brothers, sisters, cousins, everybody? It's a multitude of problems. And this is just, no one is willing to step up at the state level.
Mhm. And I'm sorry, just if you could provide some clarification. So is New York City shouldering some of the costs of the migrants present in the county?
No, as of right now, no. New York City is not funding anything. The funding that has come for our individuals who have been here is through the generosity of residents in Chautauqua County. We did receive $100,000 from the New York Department of State, but that is it. You know, there was an article last week that was published, but I would question the validity of that because, as my contacts have said, the city has not had contact with anybody in Chautauqua County in months, and the fact that those numbers are really unsustainable. But that's neither here nor there. I just know right now that there is no funding coming from New York City to anybody in Chautauqua County.
And how do you foresee, I mean, this is obviously speculative in nature, but how do you foresee the conclusion of the problem, how it will hopefully eventually be addressed and resolved?
You know, we need to stop people from coming here. I mean, plain and simple. You know, we have buses coming from all over the country into New York City. And, you know, my question is, how many are driving right through Chautauqua County? And we're thankful they're not stopping and just unloading, because we do not have the capacity to take people. I mean, unless they have the means to put themselves up in, you know, in hotels and motels, but for how long? It's just such a difficult problem. But, you know, somebody needs to take a stand. Somebody needs to stop what's happening. You know, unfortunately, like what we're seeing in the southern border is a direct result of a political vendetta. You know, they were opposed to the last administration creating the wall. And let me tell you, I've been all over the world and there are walls on borders no matter where you are. Unfortunately, that's the way the world has become. But in this case, you know, we tear down the wall and we're seeing people from everywhere. The latest intel, if you will, from New York City, I believe it was 46% of the people coming into New York City are from Venezuela, again, escaping communist dictatorship. Another large chunk is coming from Colombia, which we know is heavily influenced by the cartels.
Mm-hmm.
A very small number of Mexican migrants, but throughout, you know, Central America coming in. There are 3% from China, from Russia, from Turkey. I mean, these are places that it's not a common theme for somebody to come from Russia through the border in Mexico. But why? The border's open. Let's face it, the border is open. And people are coming across. So this idea that, and, you know, in speaking to, you know, law enforcement at the southern border, very few Mexicans are coming across. You know, Mexicans really aren't the highest number of people coming across. You know, it's now Venezuelans, Colombians, and other nationalities, and not to mention nationalities of our enemies. You know, that's a crucial piece. You know, we have Russian nationals, Chinese nationals. It's very challenging.
Okay, yes. I'm sorry, I'm just thinking I lost my train of thought there for a second. I apologize for that.
Okay.
Oh man, where was I going with that? Darn it, I had a real good question lined up and I can't seem to think of it at the moment.
That's okay. Maybe it'll come to
yes.
you.
In the meantime, one question I have, like, and this is a much more federal thing. I know for the longest time, the primary method of people coming here without the proper avenues was through visa overstays. And I don't know if you know if that is still the case or if it has shifted.
Right now, I know the biggest issue we're facing are asylum seekers or illegal immigrants coming across the southern border. Yeah, I don't know. It really, to be honest, I have not heard that overstay of visa mentioned anywhere. The biggest crisis we have right now are just people flooding the southern border. When this first was brought to my attention last November, I had a meeting in my office where I saw the documentation of individuals who were detained at the southern border. They were apprehended on September 11th of last year. So people that have been apprehended at the border last year are still here in Chautauqua County with no more progress than they were when they were detained at the border. But if they say this discussion came up, they're not using the right wording. Well, okay, detained, which means you were captured or you were held. Obviously, if you came across in the proper manner, you're not detained. They had to surrender their passports, their immunization records, all legal documents. They're given photocopies of federal documents from their own countries and told to move about the United States. Where in the United States do you go anywhere or get anything accomplished with a photocopy? Of a birth certificate, immunization record, a passport, a license. It has to have the original documentation. But yet these individuals are surrendering everything in the hopes that they will be progressed through the system. I mean, it just is ludicrous, what's happening.
Yes, and the question came back to me now. And what do you have to reassure Chautauqua County residents if this situation with New York City and the state at large with the state of emergency, if it becomes a very protracted, like a long-term thing, how will the county handle the prolonged suspension of FMAP funding?
That's really up to the governor. We'll be able to, bear that brunt as long as we can. We'll look at, what our options are. If it means reduction of services, it means a reduction of services. If it means a use of fund balance that we have worked hard to increase over the last couple of years, then it'll be a use of fund balance. My position right now is not to reduce services in Chautauqua County unless we absolutely have to. But let's hope the governor has some common sense. And what's important to remember, the money that is being withheld is not going to programming. It is going to the state's general fund balance, not a program that's not, like we said, somebody made a comment, why don't we just take the money that's owed to us, the reconciliation payments, and let us create our own migrant stabilization fund, where if you owe us 7-8 million, we'll put it here and we'll put it in the fund. And then if we do have an increase, we can assist individuals. But there's a lot of resentment from people everywhere that why should those who come across illegally and not follow the right path be given funding when we're not giving that funding to homeless or veterans or other services? I mean, the number of homeless veterans on the streets is increasing every day. You have a suicide rate among veterans that's increased. That's pretty dramatic as it is. But we're throwing billions of dollars at individuals who aren't our own citizens.
And
one of the things I focused when I came into county government of not only focusing on the county, but focusing on our employees right here at home, focusing on my house and how to do what we can for our employees. The United States government needs to focus on what we do for our residents, for our citizens. For the longest time, we have been, the safeguard of the world. Well, we've also forgotten our own problems at home, and we're not spending the proper money and funding on taking care of our problems, and that's critical.
And trust me, I know with veterans, especially my father is 100% disabled veteran. He was homeless for quite some time. And one thing that I know that he really abhors is being used merely as a cudgel to justify inaction towards other groups. So one question that I would have is, what plans do you have in place to address those issues with homeless veterans, the suicide rate, homeless people in general, and everything?
Well, those are things we're looking at. We do have a very robust veteran service administration here in Chautauqua County. We need to we are assisting people. I mean, we're trying to help people that are homeless, and we're getting chastised for it in the paper by where we're sending them. The county doesn't have, a multitude of shelters, a family, the county doesn't have, a facility where we can just, let these people live. These are plans that are all over. But, I think there's a bigger connection that needs to take place. The county has a social services agency. None of our cities have that. None of our towns or villages have that. So, coming together and we're trying to help right now, but being met with resistance. You could help, but don't help and put them in our community. What do we do with that? We do have other places we can't force people to take individuals, that are down on their luck. And let's not forget, these people were taxpayers at one time, possibly. Like you said, veterans, they served our country. They signed a piece of paper saying that I will give my life in defense of this country. And when they come back, oh, thank you. Find your own way.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. But of course, it kind of goes back to that same thing. I feel confident here in New York State. We incentivize people not to work more than we incentivize them to work. And that is, if something doesn't go right, there will be some system, some public assistance in New York State that we will help you. But it should be a hand up, not a handout. And unfortunately, we're at that precipice right now. We keep giving handouts and we don't see anything, changing.
And how would you suggest changing the system in place? I mean, this obviously is theoretical, but how do you believe would be the proper avenue to maintaining a social safety net without over incentivizing reliance upon it?
Again, there's a multitude of things. There's a program through Goodwill that is teaching individuals that have these roadblocks or hurdles in front of them how to overcome them. So we need to sit down with people. We need to hold people accountable and responsible. We need to teach the soft skills, getting to places on time, responsibility, work ethic. We talked about it at great length at a different event yesterday where, most individuals right now, if you wanted to start out with a job, right? Way back in the day, my first job was $3.15 an hour, minimum wage at McDonald's. And that's where I learned work, went to work. I remember the old saying, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean. Little things like that. But all of a sudden now you get a kid out of high school who walks into, what should be an entry-level job, which they've now fought to make sure that you're giving a living wage for. It's unique. So what incentive is there for kids to work? I mean, they can work, but their work ethic, I'm the same as somebody who may have been there 5 or 10 years, or, I'm going to do this just to make a little extra money at night or on the weekends. And I've got people that are trying to sustain a family on this wage. So we're not encouraging people to work hard. Our work ethic has not been increasing. Unfortunately, it's diminished. But there's a multitude of factors for that. That's really time for another story, maybe. But I think, and realistically, you asked the question, and it's very interesting. And I found this out in county government. When others don't want to do anything anymore, or can't, or it's beyond their means, it falls back on the county. So at what point does the county say, what more can we do? How much more can we take? Because the more that's required of us in unfunded mandates, the more burden it is on our taxpayers. It's a revolving cycle. That's the concern here. If a town or village isn't able to maintain its service, well, where does that fall? It falls in the county, which increases, the county's need, the county services. It increases the cost of business. Again, we have a great relationship, but these collaborations, need to continue. We need to work.
And one question I had that I should have asked earlier with the state mandated programming, you had said some counties, it's 97% of their budget. Are you able to discuss and disclose what all those mandates encompass?
We're looking at that right now. I have an email I've sent out to my department heads of what our state mandated services that we're providing and what is the cost. Basically our entire jail system is state mandated. Our jail medical, our medically assisted treatment for those who are addicted to drugs and opioids. That's a mandated program that is borne on Chautauqua County taxpayers. The medical services we provide within our jail are mandated by the state. There's no rebate, there's no refund, there's no grants for that. So there's a lot, and we're looking at exactly what those numbers are. But nonetheless, my job, and you'll see on Wednesday, is to be fiscally responsible to the residents of Chautauqua County and also do what we can to keep those costs at a very, very minimum as we go forward.
Mhm. And yes, of course, streamlining the process and maximizing efficiency is always a fantastic thing. So when you say Wednesday, does that mean next Wednesday, the 27th?
Yep. Yep. Next Wednesday, the 27th, we'll be putting out a media release to outlets. That'll be my budget presentation. And again, it'll be streamed online, I believe. And
Yeah, LJ, I'm gonna do a media advisory probably tomorrow, just with the info. It'll be Wednesday at 6:30. You're welcome to attend in the legislature chambers.
Okay, that sounds fantastic. I am very anxious to see what all that encompasses because I'm a numbers guy myself. But yes, I believe that sums up all of the questions that I have. Thank you, Mr. Wendel.
Thanks so much. Have a great day, LJ.
Oh, thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that's going to be it for us today. I'd like to thank you all for watching. News continues 24/7 at WNYNewsNow.com and on our mobile app. You can download it today for free in the Apple App Store and Google Play Store. We're also on Channel 716 on Roku and at channel716.com. Thank you for watching.